Heisenberg is but a child, and his devotion to you is questionable. Give the mortal to me, and I will ensure he is ready.
Hi.
A man chooses.
My victim. Let's talk.
When it comes to gaming in villains, I do not remember the last time a villain became so iconic in such a short amount of time as Lady Dimitrescu did in Resident Evil 8. She's been talked about, she's been feared, she's been fantasized, but is she actually a good villain? Today on the 153rd episode of Villain Review, I'll be breaking her down to find out.
Oh, be careful what you wish for, Ethan Winters.
When it comes to her backstory and origin, we don't really get a whole lot here. We get bits and pieces of info like the fact that she was a jazz singer back in the day, but we don't know too much about who Lady D was prior to the events of the game. The big thing here to talk about is her relationship with Mother Miranda, who experimented on the Megamycete to try and find a new host body to bring back her dead daughter Eva. Lady D was the most promising of these candidates, blessed with healing powers and eternal life, but due to a blood disease forcing her to consume large amounts of human blood, she was vetoed as prime candidate. Living in her giant-ass castle in the village, Lady D would become one of the village's 4 lords, along with not Walter, not Annabelle, and not Igor Fishman. Here, she'd help Miranda with experiments, raise 4 bug lady daughters, and become one of the most hyped villains in recent gaming history. The backstory here is pretty minimal, and I feel like it's really only included to explain her role in the world and not to develop her as a character. I'll get into it a little more later, but it's worth noting that Lady D isn't the main villain of the game, and when you have to split time up between 5 villains, there's not a whole lot of time to develop. On top of that, Lady D's section even has to be shared with her 4 daughters, which I also think hurts a bit. I like the addition of the daughters as it gives Alicia her biggest personality traits. I just wish we could have cut out some of like Frog Boy's sections and spent more time here.
But later, well, there will be enough for everyone.
When it comes to her actual personality though, I think Lady D is great, and she continues the Resident Evil trend of making villains who feel unique. She's portrayed to be a very elegant person at times, but also ruthless and barbaric at others. It's a contrast that works really well for villains seen in Hannibal Lecter, and Lady D pulls it off really well. Let's talk about her design, because I got 2 really big things I want to talk about: her height and her fashion. The idea of making Lady D as tall as Shaq on stilts is awesome. It's such a creative choice that makes her feel more intimidating and also just helps her stand out. Like, imagine if she was just normal height villain standing around like 5'5", 5'6". Yeah, that would be lame. It just feels off, the same way her fashion and elegance contradict the fact that she's a vampire out here cutting off people's hands, throwing furniture across the room. It's crazy. Okay, but now it's time to talk about the part of her design everyone wants me to talk about: her 2 biggest assets, if you know what I mean, and that is her giant pair of finger claws. Again, I love how they contrast her style, and they help encapsulate the 2 different sides that make Lady D who she is. Her daughters, I don't like them. I've never felt such a strange mix of every emotion ever whenever they were on screen. They're actually just bugs, but Lady D views them as her actual children, and it's apparent they're all she really has in life, and it makes me 0.1% sad when we have to kill them, and then listen to one of Ethan's cringe roasts.
Crazy witch.
Like, I know they're evil, but like, come on man, they didn't deserve that. Her design is intimidating, but in-game, I'm not so sure. Maybe because I didn't play on like the hardest, ultra tough difficulty, but I don't think she hit quite the same levels of fear as someone like Jack Baker did roaming around the house. However, her design and aesthetic are fantastic. They are not only awesome, they're one of the game's high points.
You ungrateful, selfish wretch! You come into my house! You lay your filthy man hands on my daughters!
Lady D does not have a lot of scenes, but that's the case for all 4 of the not Miranda villains in the game. In their defense, I don't think they anticipated Lady D being as popular as she became, but I'm sure a lot of people were disappointed to buy this game, and then she just dips after the first few hours. It would be one thing if the villains falling were just as good, if not better, and while they're not bad, it just sucks to have not only the best villain be the first villain, but the main villain of the entire game isn't even as good. As far as the scenes we do get, they're cool, but there's just not enough. You run around the house with her daughters, and then she grabs you, and then she throws you, and she says, "All right, I'll be back." And then she does that again like an hour later. Her first scene in the house is probably my favorite because the mix of Lady D and her daughters just laughing at you all the time is pretty creepy, and it sets this area up to be really suspenseful and dangerous. The last scene where she transforms into like that big ass dragon, that's pretty cool too, I suppose, but I wish there was just more stuff in between. But she's like a part of the Megamycete too, right? So we can bring her back, right? We need to give her more to do. It would be so sad if this was the last we saw of this character.
Of course, I understand the importance of the ceremony. I won't let you down.
When it comes to how evil she is, Lady D does gain a few more points here. Having to consume blood on, I'm assuming, the daily, just think of how many people she's killed in the last who knows how many years. And it has to be human blood too, so no drinking like cow blood or anything like that. It has to be the real deal. I guess you could just tie some people up and keep them hostage to have like a little blood farm thing going on, but honestly that seems even more sadistic. By taking part in stealing Rose from Ethan, Lady D shows that she has really lost all sense of empathy for the people not only in the village, but just people in general. She does a lot of bad, she allows a lot of bad. Yeah, I think it's safe to say she's a pretty bad person.
All this for a child who isn't even here.
What the hell do...
Lady D never stood a fair chance because she was hyped up to be such a prominent villain, and she's really only just in the first few hours. It puts me in a tricky spot because it doesn't really feel right judging her against big main villains from other games and shows and all that stuff, since she's only really in one level. So if I was judging her as like a side villain, I'd probably put her as like an 8, but as a villain in general, her lack of backstory scenes and presence in general really hurts her. So when it comes to that, I'm gonna give Lady D a 6.5. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know what you think of Lady Dimitrescu in the comments below and who I should review next. I make a new villain review every single Monday, so make sure you subscribe because you don't want to miss a single one. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.